We've been journeying through Luke, and we get to this moment, and in this moment, we're at the resurrection. And it's this moment in history, and I'm talking about in actual physical history, where everything changes. All of our Christian understanding, your following of Jesus, your discipleship, hinges on this moment. What we celebrate today, what we talk about today, all of it. Our entire faith hinges on this. My worldview, the way I live, the way you live, all of it hinges. Your entire faith, in a lot of ways, balances on this question. Did it actually happen? Did it actually happen? Because if it did, then everything Jesus said, everything Jesus taught, everything Jesus recalibrated from the Old Testament, the revelation of God, the humanness of it, what is God like, every single promise, every single moment, every single time that Jesus expanded an extraordinary amount of love was God doing it. If it happened, if it actually happened, what an encouragement to us today. That death has no more power, that death has no more sting, that God broke into history to reorient all of it. That death isn't the final word. That the darkness we feel sometimes, the evil we feel, the grief we feel is not permanent. But if it didn't happen, in fact, if it's some kind of nonsense, it's not possible, it's something we think about. I mean, many of us grew up in church. We've been doing Easter Sunday for the last 10 years of our lives. We don't even think about it anymore. But do you actually believe that it happened? Because if it didn't happen, if it didn't make enough sense, if it was nonsense, then Jesus was a really good teacher who taught incredibly moral and philosophical things that I grew up on in my household. And in my household, I grew up completely non-Christian. So this was the question for me. My household, when it came to Christmas and Easter, I'm kidding you not, some of you heard me say this before, I had zero idea on why we celebrated those holidays until I was a junior in high school. Easter to me, before junior year, was when my grandma would dress up in an oversized, very scary Easter bunny costume. And she would decide every Easter to sneak into our house and hide somewhere to jump out at her grandchildren. One year she went so far as to roll underneath my bed before I woke up. So that when I woke up, the Easter bunny grabbed my leg. That is what Easter meant to me. No one dressed up as Santa for Christmas. It was just Easter. My parents raised me with very Christian values. Do unto others. If it didn't happen, Jesus died as maybe an example of something, but he died like every other Messiah because there was ones before him died. If it didn't happen. I began when I was younger in my household to explore this idea of what faith looked like. I was involved in Young Life. Someone started talking about Jesus. We eventually got to this story. So I began to explore and explore and explore. And eventually, my Young Life leader got tired of my questions, and he handed me a book about Christian apologetics. And I was like, what are we apologizing for? And so I read the book. It was called More Than a Carpenter by Josh McDowell. Some of you know it. I'm not going to recommend the book, by the way. Set up a lot of straw man arguments that don't need to be repeated. But there is this one section that forever changed my life. It has changed my life, my family, and possibly the reason why I'm here today. So maybe it's changed some of your lives as well. And here's how it goes. Here's the story that I want to tell. We've been working with these disciples. And along the way, these disciples decided at some point they were going to leave home, employment, and they were going to risk it all, and they were going to follow this Jesus guy because they thought Jesus was some kind of Messiah figure, was going to do something powerful, and they were going to end up in charge. That's what they thought. And for years and years, like for 3 years, they followed Jesus around. He would heal, he would teach, he would raise the dead, and they thought for sure this was the guy. They thought for sure they had picked the absolute winner, that there was going to come this day where they would be in charge with Jesus, sitting at the right hand, the left hand, the Romans would be gone. They'd be talking about like King Solomon wealth. And so they entered Jerusalem, which we celebrated last Sunday. And they come riding in, and there's a big giant parade, and people are shouting. They're throwing down cloaks. Jesus comes down. Everybody's chanting. He goes right into the temple. He throws over the tables. The disciples are like, that's right. It's go time. It's revolution time. This is the moment. We were right. We risked it all, and we were right. And then every day he's sitting in that temple for this next week, Monday through Friday, teaching. More people, more people, more people. Pharisees are getting upset. Legal police, religious police are getting upset. Everybody's getting upset. Now the moment comes on Friday. They're up in the garden. They've had their Last Supper on Thursday. Jesus said some weird things about sacrificing himself that we don't quite get. That's not what we're doing. And they come to arrest him. And Peter's like, this is the moment. So Peter takes out his sword in one of the versions of the Gospels and cuts off the ear. He's like, let's go. Now's the time for revolution. Now's it. And they all missed it. Wrong kind of revolution. So Jesus grabs Peter's arm, says, live by the sword, die by the sword. Tells him to put it back. Heals the person coming to arrest him's ear. And willingly goes to the cross to die, to inaugurate, to fully realize God's love for us, sacrifice for us, and bring the kingdom revolution fully. Disciples have no idea. We have the advantage in hindsight. They are completely stunned at this time. This is all historically written down, not just by me, but by other people, Christian, non-Christian. Nothing I've said is out of history. Jesus had followers. Passover happened. There was moments. So I'm reading this book, More Than a Carpenter, and it's going through all this, and I'm like, okay, I get all that. That seems historically accurate. That seems to make sense. Jesus gets arrested. The disciples who had been with him for 3 years realize the revolution's not happening. Not only is the revolution not happening, but now they are in trouble. Because if they arrested Jesus for being a Messiah, a revolutionary, historically, they are now coming for all of his followers. That it wasn't just the leader who gets crucified and killed, it was all of them. All of them are going to line the way into the town as an example of don't mess with the Romans. Crucifixion is an oftentimes occurrence. It's not rare. And he wouldn't have been the first one. And so what did the disciples do? Most of them, 97% of them, the brave, courageous women stay around, but 97% of the rest of the men and women, they run. They hide. They're gathering in the upper room, trying to figure out after Friday. I mean, give Peter a little credit. Peter went and snuck and fed, hey, what happens if I can just see maybe something's going to still left to happen? Maybe it's not going to be arrest and death. Maybe something. And every time they said, hey, weren't you with him? He's like, no. Because he didn't want to also die. So these disciples are hiding. They are plotting together in the upper room on how to get out of Jerusalem, salvage some of what they lost, not lose their lives, maybe get back to Galilee, maybe there's still a fishing boat, maybe there's still something they can go do. They haven't gotten out of town yet, and Sunday happens. Now we got to take a pause in the story, and I need you all to take a visual picture on Resurrection Sunday of these disciples hiding together, plotting together on how they're going to get out of town. Because something happened. Historically, something happened. Because days later, Peter can be found in the temple courts of Jerusalem preaching right where Jesus was about a resurrected Jesus whose God with skin on. Right? That's a historical fact. The disciples, years later, all of them, all those same visual picture huddling around in the room, how are we going to get out of town? How are we going to go somewhere? All of them end up dying or exiled. They all end up, Peter ends up crucified upside down. James loses his head. You have to ask yourself, I had to ask myself as a non-Christian, like did not grow up in a faith-based home, what happened? And then you have to play this game, right? Logic and reason. You're like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. Logic and reason kicked into me. I know it sounds wild, right? There's this verse that I've been reflected in this week. It's verse 11. The women go to the tomb. They have an incredible experience with the men there. The thing is rolled away. Jesus is not there. Why do you look for the living among the dead? They come racing back to these disciples. When they come back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 hiding, plotting, trying to figure it out disciples, and to all the others. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the others who told this to the apostles. Love this line right here, verse 11. But they did not believe the women because their words seemed to them like nonsense. Their words seemed to them like nonsense. If I say to you that Jesus was raised from the dead, part of you is going to say, that seems like nonsense. But in the end, it's the only thing that did make sense. What else happened? Something historically happened that these 11 went from plotting and hiding to being the force of God in the next millennium. That the faith community became the most powerful thing on earth. And a movement started from these guys. What happened? You have a couple of options. There's multiple theories. I could give them to you, but none of them make much sense. One of them was that Jesus wasn't dead. Yeah, because Roman soldiers haven't been doing that for years. They can't tell when someone's dead or not. They take Jesus down. Nobody figures out for 3 days if they let him bleed, I guess, after mummification and linens in a tomb. That one didn't make any sense to me. As a non-Christian, it didn't make any sense to me. The second one that's a bit more popular is that the disciples made it up. That's a legit theory, right? The disciples gathered together and formed this new religion, and I was like, okay, walk me through that one. So the disciples are hiding and plotting. Their idea is, let's go to the guarded by Roman soldiers' tomb, roll away the giant stone, enter a tomb, which is culturally inappropriate and not allowed by legal Jewish law, pick up and unwrap a dead Jesus, move Jesus to another spot, bury him somewhere else, and not tell anybody. And then claim he was raised from the dead. There's this thing in philosophy called Occam's razor. If you don't know philosophy, Occam's razor is the idea that if an event happens and there's two results from it, the one that requires the least amount of assumptions is the truth. As a non-Christian in that moment, it was easier for me to get my head around the fact that they saw a risen Jesus. I think it's the only thing that makes sense. It's the only thing that makes sense. Did it actually happen? Yes. What's your proof? The 12 disciples. They all end up dying. They all end up poor. They all end up with no social status. At some point, if it was made up, if they hadn't seen a resurrected body, maybe they don't go all the way through it to the end like that. I wouldn't. Every single one of them refuses to renounce Jesus, refuses to say he wasn't resurrected, refuses to say that he was still alive somehow. And Pharisees and everybody throughout history is still trying to find the body of Jesus. They're still trying to find it. It's not there because he rose from the dead. And that changed my life. And I hope as a piece and say, what does it mean today that Jesus was not there? Historically, that was the changing moment for me. Many of us are Peter. I was Peter. That sounds like nonsense, but I think it's the only thing that does make sense. We don't always want to admit that because it means we have to radically reorient how we look at the world. What does that mean for us today, on Resurrection Sunday, on Easter, in the middle of new life and celebrations? It means this, you amazing followers of Jesus. One, you do not have to fear death at all. You do not have to fear death. God defeated death. You will live forever with God. Right? And in that space and time, not only do you not have to fear death, death is a transition between this space and a space with no more tears, no more pain, no more suffering, that the infinite beauty that you experience in moments right here. God, the sunrise was beautiful this morning. Amen? If you were out there, we did that sunrise service. It was gorgeous to be out there. The weather was perfect. If you've ever stood on a ledge or in a cliff or at the Grand Canyon and seen such amazing beauty that you just have to almost stop breathing. We see that in glimpses, but when after you transition from here to there, that's all the time. What does it look like to live life every day not afraid of death? What does it mean for us today to live that way? It also means that your pain and family, look, we too often in our Christian faith fail to acknowledge that pain and suffering are real. Absolutely, God is a good God. It's a beautiful, wonderful song. Absolutely. But that does not exclude us from the reality of pain and suffering, grief and loss. Amen? What does Resurrection Sunday mean? That's temporary. It's real. I don't want to minimize the reality and presence of pain, grief, loss, and suffering. Those are real, and they hurt like hell. But they are temporary. They are not permanent. If you were to draw, just take a string and wrap that string all the way around this entire building. Our moment here, compared to what eternity looks like, might be like this long. It's temporary. It's real. I don't want to minimize it, but it's temporary. Our lives as followers of Jesus should be laced with the reality that it happened. That it happened. In the middle of our grief and loss and crisis, in the middle of real tears and real pain, that the resurrection is also present there, holding us forward. That hope springs eternal. That when it feels lost with our kids, it feels lost with our spouse, it feels lost in the workplace, it feels lost in the world, it feels like there's no chance this will ever work itself out. God is at work in the middle of that because God is not in that tomb. Every day, every second, we are Easter people wherever we go. It holds us in there. In the middle of the tears, that are real and honest, in the middle of the lament, is this little bubble and spring of resurrection. The disciples had no idea what was about to happen. And oftentimes, neither do we. And God surprises us with resurrection. Last one is this. What does it mean for us today? It means that Jesus meant what he said and was who he said he was. And that following Jesus is the way that we experience the life as it's meant to be. Anything else is forfeit, fake, false, close proximity, but not the real thing. What does that mean for us as I'm reflecting on it? It means that more often than not, we have to travel the same path as Jesus. And that path, especially on Resurrection Sunday, always leads through a crucifixion to a resurrection. We would love to go around it. But the reality is, all of us as followers of Jesus, as we walk this path with God, we're going to lose dreams that might be ours. We're going to lose visions that might be ours of what our family is going to look like, what our life is going to look like, what our home is going to look like, what my job might be. We're going to lose those things in crucifixion ways, in painful ways, in tearing apart ways, in removing ways, and God's going to replace them with surprises that are better than you could have possibly imagined. The disciples imagined it one way. They missed it, and God delivered it a different way. The same happens for you and I. We imagine it one way, but God often delivers it another way. That's what it means for us today. I am praying that from this day for the rest of 2022 and beyond, remembering for all of us that the tomb is empty, that the resurrection is real, making every promise when Jesus says to each one of us, I have a room prepared for you. I have a promise for you and an abundance for you can't even possibly imagine. Come follow me. Those promises are all real. And lastly, that the empty tomb is not nonsense. Peter got up and went and saw for himself. And many of you have seen for yourselves that the tomb is empty. It is not nonsense. In fact, it's the only thing that makes sense of it all. Amen? Holy Spirit, thank you for what you did that we celebrate on this Resurrection Sunday. And I'm thankful that it happened in history, in reality, and that it's not nonsense, but makes perfect sense. I thank you for the transformation of those disciples, because without that, I wouldn't have had a chance to know you, Jesus. And this church wouldn't have existed if you wouldn't have showed yourself and took everybody to a mountaintop of Galilee and said, go and make disciples of all nations. We wouldn't even be here to celebrate new members, to celebrate new life, to celebrate baptism, to welcome Ethan and Lucas. So God, we say thank you and help us to celebrate well the rest of our day with our family. That you rose from the dead and the tomb is empty because you are at work. And all God's people said, amen.